My name is Joanna Billy, and what I'm about to share with you is nothing short of extraordinary. On what seemed like an ordinary morning, my life was forever transformed. After experiencing a sudden and fatal medical emergency, I found myself crossing the boundary of life and death, where I encountered Jesus Christ in all his glory. During this profound near-death experience, he revealed an astonishing truth about how the mark of the beast will come to pass. The vision I was shown wasn't just vivid, it carried an urgent message for humanity to prepare for what's ahead. Today, I am sharing this testimony with the hope of awakening hearts to the reality of what is to come. It all began on what seemed to be a typical Tuesday morning. I had just made myself a cup of coffee and opened the window to let in the fresh morning air. Everything felt calm and routine until a sudden, excruciating pain in my chest brought everything to a halt. I barely managed to call for help before collapsing. What followed was a blur in the physical world, but crystal clear in the spiritual realm. While my body lay lifeless, my soul was transported to a radiant place where Jesus was waiting for me. That seemingly ordinary day turned into the most extraordinary moment of my life, a divine encounter that changed me forever. The moment I collapsed, the physical world faded into silence. It felt as though my body had given up, but my soul was just beginning an incredible journey. I could feel myself leaving my body, gently rising upwards in a state of complete peace. There was no fear, no pain, just an overwhelming sense of calm. As I looked down, I could see paramedics working frantically to save me, but their voices sounded distant and muted, as if from another world. I was surrounded by a light unlike anything I had ever experienced. It wasn't the light of the sun or anything artificial. It felt alive, as if it had its own presence. This light embraced me, softly pulling me toward what appeared to be a tunnel. As I entered the tunnel, I was overcome by a wave of love so immense that I was moved to tears, despite not having a physical body. This tunnel wasn't dark or claustrophobic. It was vast, filled with vibrant, shimmering colors beyond anything I could have imagined. What began as a routine day became the most defining moment of my existence, a glimpse into eternity that I now feel compelled to share with the world. As I traveled along, memories began to resurface, not as fleeting images, but as vibrant, living experiences. I found myself reliving moments of pure joy from my childhood, the sound of my children's laughter, and even the seemingly insignificant events that now felt deeply meaningful. It was as though my entire life unfolded before me with remarkable clarity, every memory intricately connected to a greater purpose I hadn't recognized before. As I progressed further into the tunnel, the light ahead grew brighter and warmer, surrounding me with a sense of comfort that felt like coming home. This place wasn't about judgment. It was filled with understanding. There was no condemnation, only an overwhelming feeling of love and belonging. It felt like I was returning to a place I had always known but somehow forgotten. Suddenly, I became aware of other presences around me. They weren't physical beings in the way we know, but radiant entities of light, each emanating an energy of pure love and compassion. Communication wasn't through words, but through a direct connection to my soul, conveying messages that filled me with reassurance and peace. Among them, I instinctively recognized one as my grandmother. Her warm smile dissolved all my earthly concerns in an instant. As I continued forward, I realized this journey wasn't just about moving through the tunnel, it was a preparation. I was being guided to meet someone, and deep within, I already knew who it was. The tunnel eventually opened up into a vast, radiant expanse of light, more alive and magnificent than anything I could have imagined. And then I saw him, Jesus Christ. His presence was both humbling and empowering at the same time. He didn't look like the painted images I had seen before. He was beyond physical form, yet completely familiar. His eyes held infinite wisdom, and waves of his love enveloped me, dissolving every fear, doubt, and regret. He didn't speak in words, but somehow I understood him completely. Linda, he conveyed to me, what you are about to experience is a message meant for my children. It is your mission to share it. In that moment, I realized this journey wasn't just about encountering the divine, it was about returning with a purpose. What awaited me next would completely transform my understanding of reality. On the other side of the tunnel, I found myself in what I can only describe as the divine realm, a place beyond anything imaginable on Earth. There were no walls, no sky, just an infinite expanse of radiance and life. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, and every particle of light carried a symphony of love. This was not just a place, it was a state of being. As I took in the beauty around me, I realized that this realm was alive. Colors I had never seen, before danced in harmony and music, if it could even be called that, filled the air. It wasn't sound as we know it, but a vibration that resonated deep within my soul. Each note seemed to tell a story, a universal truth that connected everything. In this realm, I felt completely known and accepted. Every flaw, every mistake, every triumph of my life was laid bare, yet I felt no shame. Instead, there was a profound understanding that every part of my journey had a purpose. Even the parts I had I soon became aware of beings of light moving toward me. They were not like angels depicted in art, but radiant sentient entities whose very essence was love. One of them stepped forward, and I immediately recognized her as my mother. She had passed away years ago, but here she was, vibrant and alive, her presence overflowing with joy. She didn't need to speak. Her love enveloped me like a warm embrace. Others appeared, family members, friends, and even people I hadn't known well in life but had impacted in small, meaningful ways. Each presence brought a message of connection, a reminder of how intertwined our lives are. The most profound moment came when I saw Jesus. His presence was overwhelming in its beauty and power. He was both the humble carpenter and the King of Kings, his glory impossible to describe in earthly terms. His love was a tangible force filling every corner of my being. As he looked at me, I felt a flood of understanding of who I was, why I had lived, and why I was here now. "Linda," he said without words, "you have been chosen to see what must be shared." His voice resonated not in my ears, but in my soul, each word imbued with purpose and urgency. The realm itself seemed to shift as he prepared to show me the vision. That would become my mission. The radiant light dimmed slightly, and a new scene began to unfold. It was here, in this divine realm, that Jesus began to reveal the truth about the mark of the beast. As I stood in the radiance of the divine realm, I suddenly became aware of a figure approaching. The light surrounding him was unlike anything I had ever seen, alive, pulsating, and full of infinite love. It wasn't just light, it was his essence. This was Jesus Christ. His presence was both awe-inspiring and comforting, like encountering the deepest love and the highest authority all at once. He didn't speak in words, yet I understood everything he communicated. His eyes, filled with infinite compassion, seemed to look directly into my soul, seeing everything I had ever done, thought, or felt. Despite knowing my flaws and failures, his gaze was filled with acceptance. There was no condemnation, only a love so profound it made me feel whole, complete, and unconditionally valued. Jesus appeared both human and divine. One moment he was the humble carpenter of Nazareth with a kind, approachable demeanor. The next, he radiated the majesty of the King of Kings, his light brighter than 1,000 suns. Both aspects of him were equally real and true, and I knew my earthly understanding could only grasp a fragment of his infinite nature. "Linda," he said, not with words, but directly into my being, "you are here for a reason. What you are about to see is not for you alone. It is a message for my children, a warning of what is to come." As he spoke, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a divine mission. The love emanating from him was matched by an urgency that made my soul tremble. I knew that whatever he was about to reveal would change my life and the lives of many forever. Jesus extended his hand, and though I didn't have a physical body, I felt a connection as real as anything on earth. He led me to a space within the realm that seemed to transform as we moved. The light around us dimmed slightly, and I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The radiant beauty of the realm remained, but it was now focused, purposeful. It was here that Jesus began to reveal the vision that would forever alter my understanding of the world. His love and reassurance anchored me as I prepared to witness the truths he would share. Standing beside Jesus, I felt a profound stillness as the vision began. The radiant realm transformed into a series of vivid scenes, each more startling than the last. Jesus was showing me how the mark of the beast would be implemented, a truth so urgent and critical that it made my soul tremble. The first scene was a world consumed by chaos. Natural disasters, economic collapses, and political unrest swept across nations. People were desperate for solutions, for stability amidst the turmoil. Jesus explained that these events would serve as a catalyst for the introduction of a new global system. The vision shifted, and I saw technology at the heart of this system. Digital currencies replaced physical money, biometric identification became mandatory, and social credit systems governed people's access to basic needs. These innovations were marketed as progress, promising fairness, equality, and security. Yet beneath this veneer of convenience lay a sinister agenda. Jesus showed me how the mark of the beast would integrate these systems. It wasn't just a physical mark or implant. It represented a complete system of control. Accepting the mark would signify more than just economic compliance. It would be a spiritual declaration of loyalty to the Antichrist's authority and a rejection of God's sovereignty. What stood out to me the most was how subtle and deceptive this system would be. It wouldn't present itself as blatantly evil. Instead, it would be packaged as the answer to humanity's most pressing issues: poverty, inequality, and even climate change. Influential leaders, including some religious figures, would endorse it, believing they were acting in the best interest of humanity. Jesus highlighted an important point. The mark wouldn't be something people could accept by accident. Instead, it would require a deliberate decision to pledge loyalty to this system. However, the societal pressure to conform would be overwhelming. Those who resisted would be ostracized, labeled as extremists, conspiracists, or enemies of progress. Families would be torn apart, friendships would crumble, and lives would be devastated by the choice to stand against it. As I watched the vision unfold, I witnessed the sorrow of believers who ultimately fell for the deception. While they had prepared for hardships in physical ways, they lacked the spiritual discernment to recognize the true nature of the mark. Fear of rejection, hunger, and suffering drove them to make a decision that cost them their eternal souls. Jesus then turned to me, his expression filled with both grief and hope. "Linda," he said, "this is why you must share this message. My children need to prepare, not just physically, but spiritually. They must remain steadfast in their faith and trust in me." The vision shifted, giving me a glimpse of the role technology would play in establishing the mark of the beast. Jesus showed me a world where technology wasn't just a tool, it became a master, embedding itself into every aspect of daily life. I saw the rise of digital currencies, where every transaction was tracked and controlled. Cash and traditional bank accounts no longer existed. Instead, financial systems were centralized and fully digital. At first, it seemed innovative, offering convenience, security, and efficiency, but the level of control it granted to governing authorities was absolute. Next came biometric identification. Fingerprints, facial recognition, even DNA data were required to access essentials like healthcare, jobs, and education. These systems were introduced under the guise of security and public safety, but they stripped away individual privacy and autonomy, creating a world where every action was monitored. The final element was the implementation of social credit systems. People were scored based on their actions, beliefs, and compliance with the system. High scores unlocked privileges, but a low score resulted in exclusion from society. Refusing to participate wasn't just inconvenient, it made living nearly impossible. Jesus revealed how these interconnected systems would lay the foundation for the mark. While these technologies themselves weren't the mark, they were tools designed to prepare people for complete control. Their convenience and benefits conditioned society to accept such systems without question, making resistance seem irrational. As the vision continued, Jesus showed me how the mark of the beast would ultimately be presented to humanity. It wouldn't. appear with ominous signs or obvious evil. Instead, it would be offered as a solution, promising peace, unity, and progress. The system would appear to be the solution to the world's greatest problems. I saw leaders from all walks of life, politicians, scientists, and even religious figures advocating for this new system. They spoke of a world without poverty, where resources were distributed fairly, and conflict was replaced by harmony. It sounded like a utopia, but Jesus made it clear that this was a deception. Beneath the surface of these promises was a trap. Accepting the mark would mean surrendering not just freedom, but one's soul. The system would demand total allegiance, requiring individuals to reject God's authority and embrace the Antichrist's rule. Those who resisted would be marginalized, unable to buy, sell, or participate in society. Yet Jesus assured me that those who stood firm in their faith would be supported by His grace. The vision shifted once more, and I found myself witnessing the immense societal pressure that would be placed on individuals to conform. Jesus showed me scenes of people being coerced, not through overt force, but through subtle manipulation and overwhelming social influence. I saw families sitting around dinner tables discussing the new system. Some argued passionately about how the mark was essential for survival, while others pleaded not to take it, warning of its true spiritual consequences. These moments were heartbreaking because they revealed how deeply divided households would become. Children would question their parents' choices, spouses would turn against each other, and friendships would crumble. The media played a crucial role in amplifying this pressure. Television screens and social media platforms were filled with stories of how the mark had improved lives, ended hunger, and created peace. Those who resisted were portrayed as dangerous extremists, selfishly holding back humanity's progress. News anchors and influencers demonized them, calling them conspiracists and accusing them of spreading fear. In workplaces, schools, and public spaces, compliance was not just encouraged, it was demanded. People without the mark found themselves unable to access even basic necessities like food, healthcare, and transportation. Their faces were plastered on digital billboards, warning others of the dangers of non-compliance. The public was encouraged to report anyone who refused the mark, creating an atmosphere of mistrust and paranoia. What struck me most was the subtlety of this coercion. It wasn't just about survival, it was about belonging. Humans are social creatures, and the thought of being ostracized, of living as an outcast, was unbearable for many. They feared isolation, more than they feared the mark's spiritual implications. Jesus turned to me, his face filled with compassion and sorrow. "Linda," he said, "this is why my children must prepare now. They must strengthen their faith and find their identity in me, not in the world. Only then will they have the courage to stand firm." I watched as underground communities of believers formed, supporting one another through this persecution. They shared resources, worshipped in secret, and encouraged each other to remain faithful. These groups weren't driven by fear, but by love and unwavering trust in God. While their lives were difficult, their spirits were unbroken. The scene left an indelible mark on me. The pressure to conform would be relentless, but those who clung to their faith would find strength in their connection to God and each other. As the vision unfolded, Jesus emphasized a crucial truth. The mark of the beast was not just a physical mark or technological implant. It was a deeply spiritual choice, a pledge of allegiance to the Antichrist and a rejection of God. I saw individuals standing in line to receive the mark, their faces filled with a mixture of hope and fear. For many, this was just another mundane task, a bureaucratic necessity to access food, healthcare, or employment. But Jesus showed me what they could not see, the spiritual consequences of their decision. Each person who accepted the mark made a deliberate choice, even if they didn't fully understand its implications. It wasn't something they could take by accident or under duress. Their decision reflected a willingness to align with the system's values, which stood in direct opposition to God's sovereignty. Jesus revealed the spiritual battle happening behind the scenes. Angels and demons fought over souls, each decision tipping the balance. Those who chose the mark turned away from the light of God, their connection to Him severed. It wasn't an immediate punishment, but a gradual hardening of their hearts, making it increasingly difficult for them to return to the truth. On the other hand, those who refused the mark faced immense hardship, but radiated an inner peace and strength that could only come from God. They clung to their faith, knowing that their choice, though painful, was eternally significant. Jesus' voice filled my soul with clarity. Linda, my children must understand that this is not about survival on earth, but salvation for eternity. They must choose me, even when it costs them everything. I saw how the mark would test the very core of human faith. It wasn't just about resisting a physical mark, but standing firm in the face of overwhelming pressure to deny God. This spiritual battle was the true essence of the mark of the beast, and understanding this was vital for those who sought to remain faithful. The next part of the vision was both chilling and awe-inspiring. Jesus showed me the rise of the Antichrist, a figure so charismatic and persuasive that he captivated the world. He appeared at a time of unprecedented global crises, offering solutions that seemed miraculous. This leader wasn't immediately identifiable as evil. In fact, he was seen as a savior. He spoke of unity, peace, and progress, addressing the deep fears and desires of humanity. People of all backgrounds flocked to him, mesmerized by his vision for a better world. Even some religious leaders supported him, believing he was sent to heal the divisions of humanity. But Jesus revealed the truth behind this facade. The Antichrist's power was not his own, but came from a dark and deceptive source. He used lies cloaked in half-truths to manipulate the masses, offering them a false sense of hope. His ultimate goal was to lead humanity away from God and into spiritual bondage. The Antichrist system was designed to control every aspect of life. He promised fairness and equality, but delivered oppression. Those who resisted were not just excluded, but actively persecuted. The world celebrated him as a hero, unable to see the chains he was placing around their souls. Jesus' sorrow was palpable as he spoke. Many of my children will be deceived because they do not know my voice. They will follow this leader thinking they are doing good, but they will be lost. Warn them, Linda. Teach them to deceive. This revelation filled me with both urgency and resolve. The Antichrist would be a master of deception, but his power was limited. Those who remained faithful to God would see through his lies and resist, even when it cost them everything. 12. The role of believers. Strength in faith. 600 words. In the final scenes of this part of the vision, Jesus showed me the role of believers during the time of the mark of the beast. These individuals were not extraordinary by worldly standards, but their faith made them unshakable. I saw small groups of believers gathering in secret, worshiping God despite the risks. They shared food, prayed together, and supported one another in practical and spiritual ways. These communities were marked by love, not fear. They trusted God to provide for their needs, even as they were excluded from society. Jesus showed me how their faith inspired others. Some who had initially accepted the mark began to question their decision, moved by the courage and peace of these believers. Though it was rare, a few even turned back to God, repenting and rejecting the mark despite the consequences. These believers weren't without struggles. They faced hunger, persecution, and isolation. But Jesus assured me that his grace would be sufficient for them. He would strengthen their spirits, guide their steps, and fill them with a peace that surpassed all understanding. Linda, Jesus said, tell my children that I will never leave them. They may feel abandoned by the world, but I am with them always. The vision ended with a profound sense of hope. Though the times ahead would be difficult, the faith of believers would shine like a beacon in the darkness, leading others to the truth. The vision took a dramatic turn, filling me with a sense of awe and hope that outweighed the fear and despair I had witnessed earlier. Jesus showed me the final stages of the spiritual battle, the moment of his ultimate victory. The forces of darkness, led by the Antichrist, appeared powerful and overwhelming at first, spreading their influence across the world. Yet, as Jesus stood beside me, I felt an unshakable certainty that their power was fleeting. I saw the heavens open, and a light more radiant than anything I had experienced poured forth. This wasn't just light, it was the presence of God, his glory descending upon the earth. The armies of heaven followed, led by Christ himself, who now revealed his full authority as the King of Kings. His appearance was magnificent, his robe glowing with purity, and his eyes blazing with righteous fire. The forces of the Antichrist crumbled in his presence. Their deception, which had ensnared so many, was exposed for what it truly was. People who had been blinded by lies fell to their knees, either in repentance or in despair. Those who had resisted the mark stood triumphant, their faith vindicated by the undeniable reality of Christ's return. Jesus turned to me and spoke with a voice that resonated through every fiber of my being. "Linda, tell my children that this victory is certain. Though the trials will be great, they are temporary. Those who stand firm in faith will share in my triumph and receive rewards beyond their imagination." The scene shifted to a glorious new earth where peace and joy reigned. The faithful lived in harmony, free from the burdens of sin, suffering, and fear. This was the promise of eternal life fulfilled, a reality that made every sacrifice worthwhile. As the vision began to conclude, Jesus conveyed a message of profound urgency. His voice, though filled with love, carried the weight of divine authority. "Linda," he said, "my children must prepare now, not just for the trials ahead, but for eternity. The time is short, and the choices they make today will shape their futures." I was shown scenes of people living their daily lives, oblivious to the spiritual battle unfolding around them. They were consumed by work, entertainment, and the distractions of the world. Jesus' sorrow was evident, as he explained how many were unprepared for the deception that lay ahead. "Spiritual preparation is key," he continued. "My children must deepen their faith, learn my word, and seek my guidance in all things. They must learn to discern truth from deception, for the enemy will use even the smallest doubts to lead them astray." The vision shifted to show believers who had taken these words to heart. They gathered in small groups, diving into the scriptures, praying earnestly and uplifting one another. These individuals faced adversity head-on. Their faith didn't shield them from challenges, but it gave them the strength to persevere. They leaned on God's power rather than their own, and this reliance saw them through even the darkest moments. Jesus also emphasized practical preparation, showing believers that gathering resources wasn't about fear, but about being equipped to care for their families and help those in need. These actions were grounded in faith and wisdom, not panic or alarm. As the vision unfolded, Jesus shared one final vital message, a call to action for all who would hear it. He said, "Linda, this is not a message of fear, but one of hope. My children need to know that although difficult times are ahead, I am with them always. They are never alone." He reminded me that every upcoming trial had a purpose. These challenges would refine and strengthen the faithful, deepening their reliance on God. The choices people made in these times would shape their eternal futures, but His grace would always be enough for those who sought Him sincerely. Jesus revealed glimpses of people who held onto their faith, even under intense persecution. Despite their struggles, their lives radiated peace and joy. These were the overcomers, the ones who stood firm in their belief, becoming beacons of inspiration to others. He urged me to share this truth. Tell them that I have already conquered the world. The enemy's influence is temporary, and my victory is guaranteed. Those who trust in me will witness my glory and share in my eternal kingdom. As the vision faded, I felt myself being drawn back to my physical body. The divine realm began to disappear, replaced by the familiar sights and sounds of the earthly world. Waking up, I knew my life had been permanently transformed. My purpose was clear: to share this testimony and prepare others for the spiritual challenges ahead. This was not meant to incite fear, but to inspire faith and readiness. The reality of the mark of the beast looms, but so does the promise of Christ's return. Cling tightly to Him, for His love and grace will sustain you through anything. As I returned to consciousness, my breathing labored and the weight of the physical world pressed down on me. The urgency of my mission became undeniable. My encounter with Jesus wasn't just a personal revelation. It was a divine commission to spread His message far and wide. While the responsibility felt overwhelming, His words echoed clearly in my mind. Tell my children, warn them, prepare them. At first, I wrestled with how to share such an extraordinary experience. How could I express the indescribable? How could I articulate the depth of the vision and the magnitude of the truths I'd witnessed? Yet, Jesus had assured me that he would guide me, and I trusted him. As I began to write, the words flowed effortlessly, as though inspired by the Holy Spirit. I started by sharing my testimony with close friends and family. Some listened intently, their hearts open, while others dismissed it as a figment of my imagination or a mere hallucination. It was painful to see loved ones doubt me, but I held onto Jesus' promise. The truth would reach those ready to receive it. As time went on, I felt compelled to reach more people. I began speaking at local churches, community events, and to any group willing to listen. My goal wasn't to instill fear, but to share the profound love and hope that Jesus had shown me. I urged others to prepare spiritually, to strengthen their faith, seek God's direction, and remain vigilant in these deceptive times. I spoke about the hidden risks lurking behind modern conveniences, things like digital currencies, biometric systems, and our growing dependence on technology. While these tools aren't inherently bad, they are paving the way for a system capable of total control. The real danger, I explained, lies in the spiritual choice they will eventually demand: loyalty to the Antichrist or faith in God. Not everyone accepted this message. Some mocked me or called me a fearmonger, accusing me of spreading conspiracy theories. Yet, for every doubter, there was someone whose eyes filled with understanding, often moved to tears. These moments gave me strength, reminding me that saving even one soul made it all worthwhile. I found great encouragement in connecting with other believers who had similar visions and experiences. Together, we built a community of faith, standing, united in our mission to prepare the world for what lies ahead. We prayed for courage, wisdom, and the resolve to stay firm in our convictions. Through every challenge, I clung to the promise of Jesus. I am with you always. His presence became my anchor, offering peace even in the face of rejection and opposition. I came to see my testimony not just as a warning, but as a message of hope, a reminder that no matter how dark things may get, His light will always prevail. As I continue to share this message, I feel His love working through me. I've witnessed lives transformed, faith rekindled, and communities strengthened. My journey is far from over, but everything I do is for His glory and His kingdom. To anyone listening to my story, I urge you to take these warnings seriously, but do not let fear take hold. Jesus is with us, and His victory is certain. Hold on to your faith, prepare your heart, and trust in His promises. The road ahead may be challenging, but it leads to eternal hope and salvation.